guys, I'm Kylie Jean here with FreeSpace Social, and we have a very special guest with us. We have David Zhang, the host of China Insider on the Epoch Times. David, you come from a very unique background with a very interesting niche set of knowledge. Can you share with us today a little bit about who you are and what you come to the table with?
Yeah, Kylie, thanks for having me. So I'm David, and I was born in China, and then after coming to the United States, I realized what the lack of freedom really meant. And so back in China, you don't really learn about the ideas of freedom until you really escape the environment of communism. And so one of the core learning experience for me was actually realizing how to cherish freedom and to warn others about what would happen if you lose freedom.
So what does that look like when you're warning others about losing freedom, and particularly pertaining to social media? It's something that you're very well versed in big tech oversight, as well as what's actually going on in China that's affecting the United States that the normal, average, everyday American isn't even aware of.
That's a very interesting point, because what we normally recognize as losing freedom, people think that that's never going to happen in the United States, right? People said that in Venezuela before the socialist government took over. It happened in Cuba. Anytime you're only an inch away from losing your freedom, and social media today in the United States is on that path because they've decided to adopt some of the same characteristics as how the Chinese government has decided to control social media. I'll give you an example. In the Chinese social media space, Weibo is a big one, and they cover everything from news to communities to creating spaces for discussions. But anything that doesn't fit the official narrative is deleted or is censored. And so in the United States, on Twitter, on Facebook, we've seen that. We've seen the cancel culture of online space. And so if you don't have a platform where you can freely speak what you want, you're very close in this digital age to socialism and on your way to communism.
It is such a scary thought when you think that we are that close to communism and socialism, which is the complete opposite of the narrative we hear a lot with Gen Z and what's happening within the college classroom.
Yeah.
What do you say to that narrative where people are actually celebrating what's going on in China because they have a complete false idea of the reality of communism?
Well, I know generations after mine, they really enjoy the app TikTok, right? Yeah. TikTok is one of those apps where you feel free, that you can dance, you can sing, you can express yourself, but that freedom is built on the control that all the information the Chinese government actually gets hold of. And so at the same time you lose freedom, you gain entertainment. But to the younger generations, they might think that that's freedom. But to people that have lived through it, the survivors of communism, survivors of socialism, you realize that the more you're indoctrinated with ideas of relaxation, entertainment, you end up losing yourself and in turn losing your grip on freedom. And so I say to those that, especially college campuses, they're teaching the ideas of wokeism in their classrooms. Those are Frankfurt School, those are socialist ideas, those are communist ideas. And so it doesn't take much. I remember Yuri Bezmenov, who is the defector of KGB, and he warned that it takes 15 to 20 years to educate a generation for them to reverse what they had learned in the college classrooms. Yeah. And so we're in a tough battle, and I think we have great efforts that we'll talk about to fight against it.
Absolutely, and it has been a multi-generational indoctrination, and as you even experienced, you were born in China, you had very formative years there, and you had mentioned something to me earlier that was so fascinating, is that you said living in China, you didn't even realize what freedom actually was until you came to America. So how would you describe that to Americans who have only ever known freedom? What was that like to live without it?
So President Ronald Reagan had this great joke that he always told, which was a Soviet Russian and an American. They were talking, and the American said, I can walk into the White House, I can pound on the president's desk, I can say, Mr. President, I don't like the way you're running your country. The Russian says, I can do that too. And so the American says, you can? The Russian says, I can walk into the Kremlin, I can walk into the General Secretary's office, pound on his desk and say, Mr. General Secretary, I don't like the way President Reagan's running his country, right? So the joke behind that is, your only freedom is to criticize America, is to criticize this idea of democratic republics or whatnot, democracy. But then you realize how restricted is that freedom,
right? And
that's not really freedom, that's just controlled opposition, or that's controlled narrative. And so my message to Americans is that don't ever think that you are so stable, you're so well equipped with dealing and fighting against socialism, because today it takes in the form of something we have never seen before, right? Social media has been a huge factor in that.
a huge factor. And as we've spoken about before, FreeSpace Social, we are so pro just the small business owner, communities coming together and making sure that we can just really protect our right to free speech. Even with that, in China being on the cusp of entering the backbone of social media, we've seen it in all of our censorship. You were even saying that you've experienced that through Facebook, as so many of us actually have.
Yeah.
So in your prediction, from what you know, being an expert on China, where do you think we're headed towards right now?
That's a very good question, by the way, Kylie. I think we have resistance, and that's good. If we didn't, if the monopoly for big tech censorship continued, I think we would be in a place where social media no longer is social media. It's just controlled party voices, right? And that's basically the way social media operates in China. It's for the party, it's for the one voice that you can hear, which is the Communist Party's voice. And like it or not, a majority of the current social media platform is left-leaning, it's liberal, and they send the messages that support these woke ideas. And so if you don't have platforms like FreeSpace fighting back, you lose the foundation of freedom of speech.
Yeah. So what would you say in your number one opinion, besides being able to be active on a platform like FreeSpace Social, when it comes to being in the homes, when it comes to somebody who's in their college classroom, what would you give the best advice for equipping them in conversations for standing up for free speech? Don't
be afraid to speak out. Don't be afraid to speak what's on your mind, because I think we've all seen it. It doesn't, you can't change the idea of somebody else, but you can always maintain what you think is true. And it's so valuable today because the more people that think they can speak for themselves, the stronger it gets. Now, you might think you're the minority. You might be the only person on campus who speaks and thinks that way. But just know that through FreeSpace and other alliance networks, you can create a voice. I think we can turn digital spaces into a campaign or a battleground. Like just anything like CPAC or anywhere, you can express your idea. And I think when you give up on fighting on that platform is when you start to lose the battle.
Absolutely. Well, we want to thank you and thank our audience today for joining in with us. That's such a great word to end on, is that you're not alone even if you feel like it. Stand up and always cherish the value that we have with freely being able to speak about what we believe in. Make sure that you check into the Epoch Times and see David Zhang at China Insider. Thank you so much for your time, David.
Thank you, Kylie.